Your entire presentation is a close. You need to overcome every objection your audience could possibly have during the presentation. Marketing is not the only thing that you need here. You better know how to close. You better know how to sell.
What is up, folks? We've got a very, very special podcast today. The one and only Dave Dee is with us. And, when I first met Dave in live in person, I've actually heard of Dave for a long time. He's a legend in the marketing scene for his work together with GKIC. And some of you know who GKIC is. It's Dan Kennedy's organization. So I've heard of Dave for a very long time. And actually, I bought some of Dave's products, also some stuff in the area, emails, presentations, and a whole bunch of stuff. So when I actually first got to see him in Vegas, I was like, oh my God, this is Dave Dee. Really, really excited to see him. And I think Dave wanted to introduce himself. I said, no need to introduce. I know everything. Read all your stuff. Know the story of the fact that you used to be a magician and you do my reading, and then you taught people about magic and how they can sell. Then, of course, the story of how you got involved with Dan, that I didn't know, but I knew you had a lot of skills in different areas, and I noticed that one of the things that we're going to talk about today is the selling on stage one-to-many webinars and stuff like that. Because you had an automated webinar, I think it's insane, automated evergreen webinar that made 1.5 million in sales in under a year and a half. So I think those are things that I know Dave is great at. All sorts of persuasion, sales, persuasion, marketing, webinars, speaking on stages, etc. I know Dave is excellent at that. So that's why we have him on today. I'm going to dive into that. And I told him also I want to ask. So I encourage everyone, even before we continue, to follow Dave on Facebook, because Dave is not just a great resource for knowledge on persuasion and speaking. He's also got very interesting stories from the times he worked at GKIC. Just a great case studies, stories, lessons, and some horror stories even from online marketing and all sorts of stuff. So anyway, really excited to have you on, Dave. Thanks so much for making time early in the morning to jump on.
Well, thank you, man. I appreciate being here. And I wish my wife was excited when I walk in the door as you were when we met in Vegas. That would be great. I mean, if we can get my wife to be that excited, that'd be awesome. Yeah, no, it's really good. I'm really excited to be here with you.
That's awesome. That's awesome, Dave. So let's jump in and let's ask, how did you get into the field of marketing? I love to know, so how do you even get started in the area of like persuasion, marketing, magician? I love to hear the magician story. I love to hear the transition.
Yeah.
So how a magician and a mind reader eventually started working with Dan Kennedy, because I see here that he asked you to create a webinar, but how do you even meet this guy? Dan Kennedy, these two worlds are very different. So
yeah, very different. Yeah. And so the story was, I was a struggling entertainer. Like most business owners, I thought, because that's what I was taught, if I was just really good at what I did. So if I was just a really good magician, right? If I was just a really good entertainer, I'd be successful. And I quickly discovered that wasn't the case at all, because if no one knows about you, it doesn't matter how good you are at what you do. And I was really struggling. And I went to a big event, which was in Atlanta, Georgia, and saw Dan Kennedy speak, and he was selling a product about marketing. And that was one of my first exposures to someone selling from the stage. And I didn't actually even realize that that's what he was doing, right? I thought he was up there trying to teach me something, and he was actually up there selling me something. Well, I bought the product that he was selling. Then I bought other products, and I started applying all of the knowledge very, very quickly. That's the whole key. I actually implemented it, and I implemented it imperfectly. So my marketing materials weren't very good, but I did a bunch of things, took massive action, as the late, great Jim Rohn preached, took massive action. And the bottom line is I went from doing 3 shows a month, Melvin, to 25 shows a month in 90 days.
Wow.
In my 4th month, get this, my 4th month, I did 57 shows. Wow. So in my 4th month, I did more shows. Yeah. In my 4th month, I did more shows than I had ever done, like even in a year previous to that. Okay. And so that business took off. I became quite successful as an entertainer, as a magician. I was living my dream. And Dan Kennedy actually invited me to go speak on one of his stages, one of the events that he was doing, because I was obviously a good testimonial, right? I was a good case study, because my business was so different. And my business wasn't really so different, by the way. So like almost any professional service business, I needed to generate leads. I needed to close sales, which I did over the phone or in person. I needed to perform my service. I wanted referrals. I wanted repeat business. It was honestly just another business, right? It was a fun business, but it was still another business. So Dan invited me to go speak on one of his stages. And he said this to me. He said, but what you got to do is I want you to sell something. I want you to sell a product at the end of your presentation.
Oh,
And so, yeah. And so he said, I want you to go up there. I want you to speak, but I want you to sell. And then I understood how that whole business model worked. The seminar business model worked is that the promoter gets 50% of the sales. So anyone who was up there speaking other than a celebrity speaker
yeah.
who sold something, Dan got half of that money, right? Which is actually a very fair deal because he put buyers in the room. He put prospects in front of the room. Now, I was an entertainer, Melvin, and so I thought, how hard can this possibly be? All right. So I put together a little info product. And back then it was audio cassettes. That shows how old I am, right? Audio cassettes and everything. And I did my presentation, and man, the audience was laughing. They were clapping. They were loving the presentation. And then I go and I do my close, right?
Oh.
And I use the term close very loosely now. Okay. Back then, very, 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 very loosely. I do the close, and I'm expecting this massive rush of people to go to the back of the room and buy what I was selling because I saw other people doing it, right? And I had these visions of making $100,000 in an hour. And so I did my close. And honestly, the only people who were going to the back of the room were going to the back of the room to leave, to go to the bathroom, go to the restroom. I mean, it was a disaster. Almost nobody bought. I mean,
Wow.
I made a couple sales, but almost nobody bought. And so I was really upset because I had, first of all, I thought I was going to make all this money. Second of all, I let my mentor down. And so I had a decision to make. Was I actually going to learn to sell from the stage? Because I was getting more of these speaking opportunities. And was I going to learn how to sell from the stage, or was I just going to go and just be an entertainer? And I decided that, hey, I really like getting up on the stages, and I could make a lot more money selling from the stage than I could from just being an entertainer. And so I did the same thing, Melvin, that I did to go from 3 shows to 25 shows. I invested in myself. I took courses. I had mentors. I read books. And over a period of time, I developed my own system for platform selling. And about 2.5 years after my not doing well on the stage, I got a call again saying, hey, do you want to come and speak again at this event? Same event, okay, because it was an annual event. Yeah. But this time we're not putting you on the main stage. Okay.
Oh.
We're going to put you because if you bomb on the main stage, right, that they don't put you back on the main stage. So I was in a breakout room first thing in the morning. And for folks that don't know, a breakout room is a smaller room, and they have a bunch of sessions going on at the same time. And so I had about 100, maybe 120 people in my room. But this time I had mastered my platform one-to-many speaking to sell system. And so I went up there and I did a presentation. And this time I didn't get as many applause. But this time when I did my close, people literally ran to the back of the room with their credit card in hand to buy the thing that I was selling. I had sold $330,000 in 75 minutes to about 120 people in a breakout session.
Yeah.
I ended up being the top salesperson for the entire event, even from folks that were on main stage.
Yeah. Wow.
And that led to getting more and more opportunities, which eventually led to working as the chief marketing officer. And really, honestly, it really morphed into more of the chief sales guy, right? Selling via video, selling with Dan Kennedy on stage, putting products together and things like that. And so that's that's there's more to the story than that, but that's the basic journey of how I got there. And then other people started asking me after I left GKIC. A lot of people started asking me, can you teach me to sell from the stage? And that's how the current business that I'm doing right now, and I've been doing it for many, many years now, but that's how that came to be, because people saw me close from the stage and like, hey, I want to do that too. And I want to do it in a way that I don't come across as a salesperson, right? We've all
Mm,
seen the platform sales guys that come out there and say, hey, who wants to make more money? That kind of guy.
yeah.
And the kind of guy that stands on the back of the chair at the back of the room. I'm not that guy, right? I'm typically not only the top salesperson, but also the highest rated speaker, meaning that
Mm.
the audience, yeah, which
They don't
is
hate you.
not,
Don't hate you.
yeah, right. And so how do you deliver content
Yeah.
that actually sets up the sale, but also so you don't come across as that hardcore, pushy platform salesperson?
Mm,
Because a lot of the folks that I deal with are, sell professional services, and they're attorneys or they're coaches and they're consultants or they're financial folks, and they don't want to come across like that,
yeah.
right? That's fine, especially if you're selling to a business opportunity type of crowd. But it's just not my style. My style is more low key than that, but it still produces, you know, pretty tremendous results.
Wow, wow. So many things to unpack over there. Before we dive
Yeah.
into how exactly, and I think you mentioned something really interesting, which is first and foremost, you discover a system. Of course, we're going to talk about that. What exactly did you discover? And I love the second part, which is the part where I have met those platform speakers before. They come out there, they don't deliver any content. It's just a sales pitch, and they don't ever like them or don't like it. So I love to later on dive into how exactly you can give value while not being like, just a complete ass where people are just like, man, I hate this guy. They do get sales though, but they sometimes don't get invited back and they are not highly
Yeah,
rated.
that's exactly right. So there's two problems with that. Number one, they don't get invited back. And then the hidden thing is that not a lot of people talk about is that their refund rate can also be yeah, I see you nodding, because yeah, their refund rate can be extremely high.
Yeah.
And then also, I'm not making that first sale to make that first sale, even if it's a
Mm,
$2,000, $3,000 product. My goal is to create a customer, right? Is to
mm,
create a client, someone that is going to be with me long term, and not just, I don't want to be the hit and run salesperson, right?
yeah.
That takes the money and goes,
Yeah.
right? And um, hey, some of those folks make a lot of money. So if that is like the only thing that you care about, then I guess that type of methodology works, and it does. But so to answer your question, um, giving value, let's
Yeah.
talk about that, because there's a big misconception about giving value.
Mm,
And the biggest misconception about giving value is, oh, the more that I teach, the more value I'm giving. And that is, in most cases, the opposite, actually. So the problem with over teaching in a platform sales presentation is, number one, when you over teach, your audience gets confused, right? They get overloaded with information.
yeah.
Now, there is a place for that, by the way. So if I'm selling a done for you service where I'm actually going to do it for you, right? I do want to explain all of the ugly details of it, because then you're going to say, I don't want to do it. I'm going to pay Dave to do it. But in most cases, if I'm selling a product, if I get into every nitty gritty, teeny little detail, and I keep teaching, I keep just piling on stuff, it's overwhelming for your audience. And an overwhelmed and confused audience isn't going to buy, right? In
Mm,
fact, they may tune you out. The second problem with over teaching, and we'll talk about how to deliver value, but let's go
yeah.
over the problem first. The other problem with over teaching is that you can lead your audience to falsely believe that they have all of the information that they need in order to solve their problem and get the result. And that's not true. There's no way in 75 minutes or 90 minutes. I mean, we're just talking about a guy who's got 18 hours of content, right? To teach his entire system. But there's no way in a platform presentation you are going to be able to teach somebody everything that they need to know to get the result that they want, to solve the problem that they have. But if you teach them so much stuff, you leave them with that belief, I've got everything that I need.
Yeah.
Or I could fill in the blanks, right? Well, the stuff he didn't tell me, I can go and search, go online and figure it out. And the fact is that they're not going to get the result. And so you've done your audience a disservice, right? Because they're not going to get the result that you know that your program could get them. And you've obviously done yourself and your family a disservice because you're not taking in that revenue that you should be taking in to help that person that needs your help.
Yeah.
So, so that's the problem. So how do you deliver value then? So my big rule of thumb is to deliver 3 major topics, 3 major pieces of content. 3, not 5, not 7, 3. Why? Well, because studies have shown that people, and you guys can look it up, psychological studies showed that 3 people can remember 3, that they can understand 3. So you have 3 major topics. If I could only, so the question I always ask myself is, if I could only teach 3 things to someone about the particular topic that I'm speaking about, what would those 3 things be? Now, under those 3 main headings, there's certain things that you do, and we can go through that. I'm happy to like get as deep as you want into this, but there's 3 major things, that 3 topics, and then under that you can teach other things, right? So let's say I'm talking about unique selling proposition as an example. Well, I could tell them what the unique selling proposition is. I can give them examples of great unique selling propositions from other businesses. I want to tell them why a unique selling proposition is so valuable, right? I may even give them a little template, but that on their own. So I've just given them really good information, right? I've given them examples. I've explained why it's important. I explained the benefits of it. I may give them a little template that they can work with, but they're still not going to be able to go out and create the unique selling proposition on their own. They need more instruction, more detail, more of that. So basically, I've told them what to do, but I haven't told them how to do it. Okay. So I've told them what to do, not how to do it. And the other scenario is that you give useful but incomplete information. So I could say, under this particular topic, there are 5 crucial things that you need to know. Obviously, we don't have time to go over 5 today, but let me give you the two of the most important ones. And then I do a deep dive into those 2. I really teach on those 2 things. And by the way, I make those 2 things the juiciest things, the most exciting things. Why? Because when I get to the end of my presentation and I say, I've got this program, and in module number 3, we go over the 5 most crucial things that you need to do, right? So I've given them 2. Well, that creates what's called an open loop in their mind. They want to know what the other 3 are. And so the key is I am delivering good content because teaching people what to do is valuable, because most people don't even know what to do, let alone how to do it. And if I can inspire someone or motivate someone by sharing with them a concept, explaining in detail why this concept is going to change their life, not how it's going to change, not what to do, but how it's going to change their life, right? So I'm not teaching them the details of the how. I'm explaining, if they do this, this is the result that they're going to get. And I can inspire them and get them excited about that so that they actually buy my product and do it and it changes their life. I've actually done my job, right? Because that's the only way that I can have the transformation on that person that I want to have, is by them investing in my product, investing in my service, investing in my coaching, whatever it is. That's the only way I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it in 75 minutes. Did that all make sense?
Yeah, makes absolute sense. Love it. So many things to unpack here. By the way, I love the concept of open loop. I have an open loop, by the way. I want to close. The open loop is how the heck did you manage? Before we go back to this, because I was writing notes here. Love the ideas on people that teach and we can dive into this. But I have an open loop based on your story earlier. How do you go from 2 shows to 57 shows? It still boggles my mind because that's a 30 close to 30 time jump.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I'll tell you exactly how, because it applies to any business.
Yeah.
Okay. It applies to any business. And here's the part of the story that I did not talk about. But it's an important piece of the puzzle. So I got really pretty good at generating leads. I got pretty good at making my phone ring. Okay. So, I mean, I did a bunch of stuff. I did direct mail. I did advertising. I advertised in magazines. I did a lot of direct mail back in the day. Because this was, keep in mind, this was 30 plus years ago. But the problem was, and this is what nobody wants to talk about. Everyone wants to talk about marketing, right? Because marketing is sexy and marketing is fun and all of that. But the truth is that one of the major keys for me making that big leap was being able to close. So my phone was ringing, right? People were calling. My marketing was working, but I wasn't closing in the beginning. Right. And so I said, wait a minute here. So it actually made the marketing actually made my financial situation worse in the beginning, because now I was investing money to generate these leads.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wasn't closing them. So then I discovered, well, marketing is not the only thing that you need here. You better know how to close. You better know how to sell. And what's kind of cool is platform selling is kind of marketing and selling at the same time, right? So I can use, for example, I can use my webinar as a marketing tool to generate the lead and also close the sale.
Yes.
That's the beauty of it, right?
Yes.
That's why I like webinars and things like that. I can use my platform. So for example, I work with people that help people with their finances, financial advisors, and they'll do a webinar to generate leads, or they'll do an in-person seminar to generate leads. So they're using the seminar to generate leads and then using that same seminar to close leads. So getting better at closing was key. Because let's say, and I don't remember the percentages, but let's say I was closing 3 out of 10 people that called me. All right. Let's say I was closing 3 out of 10. And then I started closing 6 out of 10. I doubled my closing percentage. Well, now I've doubled my sales with no additional marketing expense. None. Right. And I got really good at closing.
Wow.
Then the other things that I did is I understood that my show, here's a major concept, that my show was not, doing the show was not the end game. The show was not the end game. The show was a vehicle to book more shows. So I did things during my show that the audience would not consciously understand that I was doing this, but it was all designed to get people to come up to me afterwards and say, how can we hire you? Okay, right? So the major concept here, though, and I can explain how that worked, but I want everyone to understand the major concept.
Yeah.
Your first sale is not the end game. It's the beginning. It's the beginning. That's why I don't want to be that platform salesperson that just takes a bunch of money and then has got to go to the next event and is on the road 24/7 because they've got no long-term customer value. So when I do something, I eventually want them to come through, if they qualify, end up in my higher end coaching programs, right? So they may buy a $2,000 thing or a $500 thing or whatever it is. But that's not the goal. The goal isn't to collect the money. Yeah, I get the money and I take the money, but that is just, I've now acquired a customer. I've now acquired a client. So it was the same thing when I was doing my shows, right? When I switched from, hey, celebration, I booked the show. No, the booking of the show was the beginning. So I'll give you a couple examples. So I started out doing children's shows, birthday party shows, but I wanted to get paid more money. And I was already the highest paid children's entertainer in the area. Okay. By far. Okay. My fees were higher than everybody else's at the time, but still not corporate money, right? Not being able to do corporate shows. But the target market that I selected was all affluent homes, very affluent homes in the area that I was living in. Well, who lives in affluent homes? CEOs, top executives in companies. And so one of the ways that I started booking those shows was during my kid's birthday party show, all the parents are watching, right? And so I would say, hey, everybody, I want to do something special here that I did for Porsche last week at their sales meeting. I do this during the kids show, and everyone loved it, and everyone here is going to love it. And so almost every time I did that, someone, typically a man, because that's back in the day, would come up to me and say, I'm the sales manager for XYZ company. Tell me more about this sales meeting thing you do. And all of that was planned. So I had all of these little things planned. So that combined with doing more marketing, combined with doing more shows and doing that stuff inside the shows, combined with getting better at closing, all of those things work
exponentially
together.
that is absolutely
right. So
brilliant.
It wasn't one thing. It was all of those things. And that's what everyone is looking for is, what is the one thing that I can do to explode my bit? Well, I mean, the truth is, and I know you love to tell the truth here on your podcast, there isn't one thing. There's not one thing.
It's not.
It's not one thing. Right. It's multiple things. Now, some things are more powerful than other things. That's for sure. And having a signature, what I call a money talk, signature one-to-many sales presentation is one of the most powerful things for all the reasons that we talked about.
Just absolutely brilliant. I'm so happy I asked that, because that alone is one of the many things that I want to ask you about. Because as you're sharing that story and also the stuff that you were sharing at the front, here are some of the things that I'm taking notes of. First one, open loops versus closed loops. We can dive into that, because literally you had the open loop just now, and I was like, hey, we love to go on this call. I had to close the loop. I love that. We'll come and talk about that in just a bit. The next one that you just did, whereby you basically told at the kids' magic party about the fact that you were doing a Porsche show. That's called seeding. Where you're planting in their mind. You're like, oh, okay, so that's a form of open loop seeding also. I love another concept you have, which is the idea, because I feel all good presentations go down to why, how, what. And so you give them the why. Here's why this concept is really great. Educated, so now they buy into that. Here's what the overarching architecture of the concept is, but they don't get the how.
They don't get the how. I love that. By the way, that's great. That's a great framework that you just described.
So let's talk a little bit about open loops and closed loops. When did you discover that worked? Why does it work? and every open loop you set in your sharing, they are only going to close in the purchase.
You just nailed it. Well, obviously you're a master at this, right? I mean, you could be doing this podcast. You're a master at closing from the stage. And by the way, when we say stage, that could be a webinar or virtual stage. It could be an in-person stage. It doesn't make any difference. If you can close one-to-many, you can close one-to-many. So so open loops, and you just said the most important thing. Everything that first of all, your entire presentation is a close. So, right, from the very first thing you say till when you walk off the stage, in fact, even after you walk off the stage, all of that's a close. So yes, you have the closing sequence in your presentation for sure, but the entire presentation is designed to create the desire, the almost unquenchable desire to buy what you're selling. That's what it is, because it's going to solve your audience's problem. It's going to move them from where they are to where they want to be. And if you can build that up, that's the purpose of the presentation. But you're correct. What you want to do is you want to set what are called these open loops. So as I mentioned, one of the ways to do it is to say, hey, give it useful but incomplete. So if I'm talking about, and some of them don't have to be that explicit. So another example of an open loop is I would say something, I would be teaching, and let's say that I would create the question by leaving something out, but that every audience member would know, right? So if I'm teaching how to do webinars, well, one of the questions that almost everybody has is, well, how do I get people to come to my webinar, right? Now, I don't want to teach that. during my presentation. But that's an non-verbalized open loop that someone's going to have in their mind, right? It's also an objection that they're going to have in their mind. Well, yeah, I get this. This is going to work, but how do I actually get people to sign up for my webinars? And so if I'm now doing my presentation and I get to the bonuses that I'm offering, and one of them, and I say to them is, well, a lot of people wonder, well, how am I actually going to get people to sign up and show up to come to my webinar? Well, in this bonus program that I have that I'm going to give you, I show you step by step how to fill your webinars on auto, blah, 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 blah. So that's another example of an open loop. The open loop is implied. It's a more sophisticated strategy because you're not saying, hey, well, one of the most important things is traffic, right? Getting traffic to the webinar. You're not saying that, but you know that your audience is thinking that. And so now when you get to the only way that they can close all of these loops is, as you said, by buying your product.
Yeah.
The other thing that you mentioned, though, is and I want to give this strategy to everybody. This is one of my favorites. This is really sophisticated and it's so powerful. You mentioned planting the seed.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's one of my favorite techniques, and and everyone's gonna have to adapt it, but you'll be able to use it. Okay. So what I typically sell is a high ticket thing. And so I know that there's going to be a portion of the audience, some people in the audience that are going to think, I really want this, man. I really need this. But I don't think I can afford it, right? This is the thing that's going to, right? Now, there's a couple ways that I could overcome that objection. And by the way, in a one-to-many presentation, you need to overcome every objection your audience could possibly have during the presentation. Now, there are different ways to do it. Here is one of my favorite, and it's the most subtle way, and it's planting the seed in their mind before they even have the objection. And I'm going to give you the exact. I'll just do the story.
Yeah.
Okay. Because because I didn't tell this part because I'm not selling anything here, right? Yeah. So so part of your presentation, you're going to tell your origin story or your core story. Okay. So we'll go back to where I was at that event. Okay. That I saw Dan Kennedy speak that I talked about earlier. When I'm selling, this is how I tell the story. So I was at this event and I see this guy on the stage and I know that he has the product that I need. I knew that this was the thing that was going to change my life. Okay. But then he told me the price and my heart sank because I immediately thought, I can't afford that. I want this, but I can't afford it. I know this will change my life, but I can't afford it. But then I remembered something that Jim Rohn said. Jim Rohn was Tony Robbins' mentor. And Jim Rohn said, successful people invest in themselves and their education. And that's why they're successful. And I knew that I wanted to do what successful people did. So I went ahead and I invested in that program, even though I didn't think I could afford it. And then I go on to tell the rest of the story. So what have I just done? This is at the beginning of the presentation.
Yes.
I have just planted the seed in their mind. If they come up with the objection, I want it, but I don't think I can afford it, that seed sprouts, right? And they answer their own objection. If it doesn't come up, no problem. It's still a really cool story. That seed doesn't sprout. But Melvin, I can tell you every single time, at least one person, at least one comes up to me and says, man, this is a real stretch for me to get this thing. And I didn't think I could afford it. But I remembered that thing that you said that Jim Rohn said, and that's so true, right? So now notice that's a whole different scenario than me saying it like this.
Yeah.
Now, some of you might be thinking, I can't afford this. Well, let me tell you something. Successful people invest in themselves and their education. And if you want to be successful, you need to do what successful people do. You see, that's no good in my mind, right? That's going to put up that barrier. That's going to be that pushy salesperson. The subtlety of telling it, answering the objection inside of the story.
Yes.
Right? Yeah. So anyway, that's planting a seed. Yeah.
And I think there's one thing that is within that. which is because I was taking some notes here, beautiful way, because I've seen people do it the second way, which is, they just, and that's how, that's called brute force closing. And that's how you get a lot of refund rate. So you just go up there, yell at people. I have seen speakers stand on stage and just berate people for not going, hey, you didn't buy my stuff. You're a loser. You never be. I was like,
yeah.
Very, very negative energy that I don't like that. Yours is elegant. I think there's something beautiful about it, because it and you put it at the front. But the more amazing thing about what you just did is there's a frame and an identity inside. Successful people invest in themselves, and they all think, I would be a successful person. I gotta invest in myself. So that is the key, because you could easily change it to rich people invest in themselves. You could, but
whatever it is, right? The idea, again, the concept is okay. So another strategy for everybody is you want to create a list of all of the objections that your audience could have. And then when you create your presentation, naturally, you'll see places where you can answer those objections. And then after your presentation is created, you want to go back and you want to go look at this list of objections that you created and make sure that it's covered. All of them are covered in the presentation. And you'll be able to see, it's called layering. You'll be able to see where you can layer in the answers to the objections. And now there's nothing wrong with doing it direct, answering a question directly. So, hey, a lot of people wonder, or a lot of people ask this question about this. That's fine. You just don't want to do that all of the time. So other ways to answer objections are through testimonials, right? So a common one is, I don't think this is going to work for me, or I'm skeptical. So you want a testimonial that says, I was really, really skeptical of Dave Dee. I never really heard of this guy, but I took a chance and I implemented what he said, and now I'm a millionaire, right? So now I've just answered that objection without confronting the audience, right? So there's different ways, but the major point is make sure that you answer all the objections. Because as opposed to one-on-one selling, you're not going to have that opportunity, and you'll lose sales and not know why you're losing them.
Yeah, it is a lot. So I think this is the part that a lot of, and this is absolutely brilliant, because a lot of webinar, sort of people doing webinar and stage selling kind of stuff, it very often is just what I call alpha persuasion, which means they give you reasons why, but they never ever deal with everything that we just spent time talking about, which is the answering of objections also. Because if they have reasons why, but they have some lingering objections, they aren't running. They are not running to the back. They're like, I think about it. And here's the tough part. If it's one-on-one, you still have time to just, dissolve the objections, but you don't, because it's like, you could be doing 100, 300, 1,000 people, or you could be on Zoom and they never ever get a chance to talk to anybody, and then you just lose them. And then that's that. At least in a live event, if they are somewhat interested and the event allows you to stand at the back and like meet these people and you answer their questions, they might buy. But for all other occasions, you might not. So I just think that.
Well, let's talk about that, man, because you just said something really exciting, right? I mean, we should do a course together. I mean, honestly. Go to the back of the room. So let's talk about that. If you're doing a live event, you're at a live seminar, here's some magic for this. All right. Number one, tell the AV crew, do not turn on the music. Now, obviously you got to clear this with the promoter, right?
Yeah.
So you've got your time block, right?
Yeah.
That's the other thing that gets me. There's a lot of these guys who will then go out in the hallway and take people out of the room. You can't do that. You can't. You got to respect the next speaker that's coming up, right? You got to respect the promoter.
That's how you don't get invited back again.
That's how you don't get invited back, even if you sell really, really well.
Yeah.
So, but here's what you do. You tell the AV crew, do not turn off my microphone. Do not turn on any music, and keep telling them if you got to tip them, whoever it is, right? And so then what you do is, after you do your call to action, if you're having people go to the back of the room, you go to the back of the room. Right. And you stand in the back of the room and you answer questions, but you answer questions with the microphone on. And somebody's going to come up to you and say, hey, your microphone's on.
Yeah.
You say, oh, yeah, thank you. But you want that, because what you're doing is you're answering questions that other people probably have, and you're continuing to sell.
Yeah.
Even though you're in the back of the room and everyone thinks the presentation is over, people can still hear you. They're still listening.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's a nice strategy, provided, as you said, that you clear it with the promoter.
Yeah, I've seen people do this before. It's really they're very awesome. But I just think, like, we have covered something really critical. The objections part really important. Not overwhelming the audience also with the three parts. Let's talk a little bit about and this is brilliant. Like you said it so well just now. The part where you educate them on the importance of the concept, then providing them the big pieces. Then afterwards, they'll get the specific how. Or you also mentioned, you tell them that there are 5 hows and you give them 2 and then the 3. But you spend majority of the time telling them the importance first and then what the over big pieces are. Let's talk about why that's such a good strategy. Because
Yeah. So
a
you
lot of people
want
do the
to,
reverse. They're like, oh, here are 12 copywriting secrets, and they try to burn through all 12. And then people either
well, first of all, nobody wakes up in the morning not being able to sleep last night because they can't pay their bills, or their business is struggling and they don't have enough appointments, and they roll over and look at their spouse and say, "Oh my God, I wish I had 12 copywriting secrets. If I just had 12 copywriting secrets, my life would be better." No one is saying that, right? So my thing is I would never do 12 copywriting secrets, right? So what we want to do is, and I actually even forgot your question, but because this is such an important thing. Everything is no, and I remember your question. It ties in perfectly. We want to the reason that people are going to buy our stuff is because they are in some form of pain and they want to have that problem solved. So the entire presentation is number one, letting them know, God, this is another really good one. Letting them know that you understand their pain.
wow, brilliant.
Okay. This is a huge one.
Huge.
Letting your audience understand that you understand them. Quite frankly, this is one of the most important things, because
Huge.
if someone truly believes that you understand them on a very deep level, what they fear, what pains they're going through, what their dreams are, what their frustrations and struggles are, they're going to trust you, right? This comes from my mind reading psychic entertainer days, right? Doing cold reading. That's a whole other topic, cold reading. But cold reading is a technique and a strategy where people believe that you know deep things about them. Okay. So if you get the audience to understand that you understand, first of all, they're going to be way more open to listening to you. They're going to trust you. So we understand that they're in pain, that they're frustrated, that they want to solve this problem. And so the point of the presentation is to, number one, not make the problem worse than it is. Okay. But let them know that we understand what their problem is and what their frustration is and how long, and then basically planting in their mind, how long are you going to put up with this? Right? How long are you going to let the status quo be the status quo? And so when you introduce a concept, you've got to sell it to them, and you sell it to them on the importance of it. Hey, this is the situation that you're in right now. Okay, this is the pain that you're in. This next thing I'm about to tell you is one of the keys that is going to help you reach the other side, go from where you are to where you want to be. Now, I wouldn't use that exact language, but that's so when you introduce a concept, yeah, you want to sell them on that, on why what you're about to tell them is so important, is crucial to them getting out of the pain that they're in, right? And so now the solution tied with the pain, right? Hey, here's this person understands me, right? They really get me. They really understand the pain that I'm in, right? And they've got this, and now they're going to tell me something that's going to is one of the keys to help to get me out of this pain and move me to here, move me to where I want to be. And then we teach in the way that we've already talked about, telling them what to do, not how to do it.
Yeah.
Right. That creates inside of them this, it's a pressure. It's a pressure inside of themselves. That's the only way that they can release this pressure and get what they want and get out of this pain is to buy your product. So that's why you introduce it first.
And I think the absolute brilliance and the distinction you made was not just the explaining of the importance of the concept, but linking it to the empathy, which is the reason why they're in that situation. They don't have this or the importance of why this is the answer to lift them out of it. So it's not just like, hey, let me explain to you, let's say, why crypto is such a great thing, or why, this particular thing is such a great thing. It's just, here's your situation, and your situation is there because you either don't have it or you haven't learned how to do it. And here's why this is so important. And then they're like, oh my God.
Oh yeah, you haven't learned how to do it. There's an enemy,
Oh my
right? Right. So there's an enemy that has prevented you from doing it. That enemy could be the government. That enemy could be the mainstream media. For crypto, that enemy could be Wall Street, and the how we've all been brainwashed into believing that the only way to so on and so
Yeah.
forth, right?
Yeah.
So setting up an enemy is another way to do it. So for example, if I'm going to introduce, let's say I'm selling something on tax planning, and I'm going to save money on my taxes, right? Well, the enemy is the government, right? So hear the truth. The government is going to be taking more and more and more of your money. By doing that, you are going to remain stuck no matter how hard you work. How many of you guys are working hard already, right? You're working hard. You're working long hours. You're trying to save. You can't do it. Well, that's not your fault. It's the government's fault. But there are ways, and this next concept that I'm going to share with you is a way for you to legally shelter a major portion of your income so it remains in your pocket, not in the government's. But I'm just making stuff up literally off the top of my head about topics I don't even know anything about. But you get right.
I totally get it.
It sounded pretty good.
Yes.
Right.
Let's talk about one thing you just mentioned, and I want to talk about this because it's one of the favorite, and I'm 100% sure you use it. You just subconsciously said it. Is enemy an excuse of blame? You did both of those things both at the same time. But they say, hey man, the government screwed you over, and you suck because you don't know this, but you're like, so there is an enemy and it's not your fault. Let's talk about why these two things are so critical in a presentation. Why is the setting up of an enemy yet simultaneously excusing them of blame so important?
Well, because that's the way the human mind works for most people, right? So for most people, they are blaming. They don't want to blame themselves.
Yeah.
Right. They want to blame somebody else, right? And because you weren't told this, because you didn't have this knowledge, because this knowledge has been holding you back. It also builds up that, wow, this is secret knowledge. This is curious. So Gary Halbert, great copywriter, said the number one tool is curiosity and persuasion, right? So it's making, well, what is this one thing that I'm missing? So setting up an enemy, and in many cases, it's true, right? But another line I will add is it's not your fault. Up to this point, it's not your fault, right? Because no one has told you this up to this point. But after today, you can no longer use that excuse.
I love it. Right? I love it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I absolutely love it. Let's talk about one thing also, which because there's so many things to piece here, and just for everyone listening, because actually I wanted to mention that at the end, but we can kind of mention it. Do you have a copy of your book? Like first of all, if you guys are enjoying this conversation I have with Dave, so many things I can ask him, but Dave actually has a book.
Yeah, they can get it for free, dude. They can get the book for free. All they've got to do is go to davedee.com. It's called Persuade and Profit. Persuade Profit. It is literally, and I'll give you, I've never said this on a podcast before. So that book is an edited version of a $997 course.
Wow.
So it is really, honestly, a transcription of the course.
Wow. My God.
Of a course that I sold for. It goes through everything everything we're talking about here in detail, from what do you do in the first 30 seconds? What do you say? There's templates, right? It's literally literally
I want to inject this right now because people are enjoying this conversation. You're like, hey man, this Dave Dee guy is really smart. I'm like, I saw that he was coming up with a book, and I was like, I want to spread, because I know Dave is excellent at this. So the moment I saw he came up with the book, I was like, I need to bang the gong, tell people about this, get Dave on so that people can see he's brilliant and go and download. Because at the point in time I thought you were selling the book, so I was like, hey man, I'll send Dave some sales, but hey, it's free. That's nuts.
Yeah, it's free. And you just go get it at davedee.com. And then again, if it resonates with you, we can do business further. If not, just take it and use it. The only thing I ask is that you use it. And imagine, by the way, there's no $7 shit. It's literally free. So just use it, right? Imagine that you spent $1,000 or $2,000 on it, because it really is a transcript of, now it's an edited transcript of a $997 course
absolutely
on one-to-many selling.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah. So I want to have a call to action in the middle of our conversation, just in case we don't finish watching the whole thing. But if you actually go there, brilliant stuff. Let's talk about how you begin. So I got 2 or 3 other layers of this to talk about, because we spend a good amount of time in the middle, which is really critical. I want to talk about how you begin, because I think that the beginning is where a lot of people get they either it can go many ways, and most of the time, if you screw it up, then you cannot be helped.
Yes. Yes. So let's jump to the beginning of the presentation. I love talking to somebody who's also a master, because we can have a nice, deeper conversation. It's fun. As opposed to somebody who's never done it. Like, you're a master platform salesperson. So the opening is mission critical, especially on a webinar. Now, it's important on a live, right, in person. But on a webinar, it's really important, because if you don't grab their attention and rivet these folks to their screens, you're in trouble, because they're going to start surfing the internet. They can click off. I did it the other day. I signed up for somebody's web, a famous guy. It was terrible. I mean, it was just, I literally watched 2 minutes of it and I said, done, right?
Yeah.
So that's what people are going to do. So what do you do? Number one, let's just start at the very, very, very beginning, Melvin. The very beginning. And the very beginning is the title of your presentation. Oh my goodness. No one spends enough time on this. This is one of the keys, because if you don't have a super hot title, what's going to happen is you're not going to get anybody to show up for your webinar. You're not going to get anybody to show up in the room, right? You've got to have a super hot title for your presentation. But so let's assume we have a super hot title. What do we do in the beginning of the presentation? I'm going to give you, there's different ways to open it, but I want to make this literally the most valuable podcast you've ever done for folks. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me give them a script, right? Here's a fill in the blank script, right? Here you go, right? In the next 75 minutes, I'm going to teach you a 1, 2, 3 step-by-step strategy for, and then what is it that you're going to share with them? What is the big benefit that they're going to get, so that you can blank, so in the next 75 minutes, I'm going to teach you a 1, 2, 3 step-by-step strategy for attracting more clients without spending another penny on marketing, so that you can grow your business by 330% in the next 75 days, right?
Wow.
Now, right? I've got it.
On stack. Wow.
On stack, right?
Also,
right? Without spending another penny on marketing. Wow, I got to hear what this is.
Wow.
Okay. Now, so there's a little template. Then the next piece is, this is for you. So this is for you if, and then here's the key. Then you describe the prospect and the pain that they're going through. This is where you describe the pain. This is for you if you're really great at what you do, but you're frustrated because you're simply not getting enough new clients. This is for you. Then you just describe the pain. This is where you describe what they're going through. And the best way to do this is everyone talks about creating a client avatar or a customer avatar. It's better to really be thinking about one person, right? As opposed to this fictitious person. Who is this one person who really describe exactly what they're going through? And so now we've got them excited with our big promise. Now we're saying, hey, this is for you. And the person says, yeah, that's me, right? Okay. And so then what we want to do is so now we've made a big promise. We've described who it's for. Now they're really engaged. By the way, notice I haven't said anything about myself. Nothing to do with me. This is 100% all about them.
Yeah.
The next piece is to do what is called future pacing. Future pacing is a strategy where you paint a mental movie. You create a mental movie in the minds of your audience where they see 2 different scenarios. One scenario is hey, I'm where I want to be, right? My calendar is full. I'm making more money than I've ever made before. I have more free time. It's this beautiful picture of what they want. But the more important one is the dark scenario, the dark future, where they are not getting what it's the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Now, again, you don't want to paint it. I've seen people do this, and it's so obvious that it's manipulative
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it's so over the top, right? Your wife is
Yeah.
going to leave you. You're going to be homeless on the street. No, right? But paint a realistic scenario. So now they see two futures.
Knowing this would enable you to not knowing this would.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Mm.
And so now, so we've done some future pacing. So we've had that strong opening. We've described, and we're going over this quickly. There's a lot more to it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But describing who this is for, we've now future paced them. One of the things that I like to do, just as an aside, is move people, bounce them back from between pain and pleasure, right? So, because Tony Robbins teaches there's two motivating forces, pain and pleasure, right? For most people, the motivating force is pain.
Yes.
Okay, it's not pleasure,
Yeah.
right? It's not get all of this, it's get out of this pain that you're in.
Yeah.
So, but I go back and forth. So we started with a positive statement. Then we said who this is for. We painted like their shitty life, how it is right now. Then we've future paced a beautiful thing. Then we future paced a negative thing, right? So they're like, right, all over the place. And then what we want to do is then we introduce when we tell our origin story or our core story. But here's the key about people miss this.
Yeah.
This is the first part that we're talking about ourselves at all.
Yeah.
But even when we do it, our story needs to relate to the audience. Okay.
Yeah.
So this was very, very easy for me when my very first information product was a course for other magicians. That was the very first information product I ever created. And it was very easy for me because I told my core story, because my core story was their core story, right? My origin story matched up almost exactly with how they were feeling, because I was one of them. Well, what do you do if you're not one of them? Well, you need to tell your story in a way that relates to your audience. So you want to talk about why you're so passionate about what you do, not from your perspective, but from the audience's perspective, right? I'm so passionate about doing this because I'm sick and tired of seeing good, hardworking people struggling financially and going back to the government, paying the government their exorbitant taxes when they don't have to, when you don't have to, right? So you're showing, and by the way, show your passion. Show your passion. This is what we haven't had time to talk about here today. There's actually two major pieces to creating a presentation that sells. Right now, we're going over the mechanics, which are important, and creating the presentation. The other piece, which I would argue, maybe we could do another podcast about it seriously, is about the presentation, presenting the presentation. Quite frankly, if I had to choose, and fortunately no one has to choose, but if I had to choose between knowing how to deliver a presentation with passion and power and confidence and keeping the audience engaged, I would choose that over putting together good slides and putting together the content of the presentation. But anyway, so we tell our origin story, right? And then what we want to do is we then transition into our content, which we've talked about. Okay, so now we start teaching. And by the way, I like to call it content that sells and not teaching. This is the content that sells section because it keeps in mind what it's supposed to be. And then we need to transition into the close. I had a guy, Melvin, pay for a complete private consulting day with me. He already had his presentation. We made some tweaks to it. He paid just to learn how to do the transitions. I'm not kidding.
That is so important. Oh my God.
Yeah. This dude, he was a pro. He was super successful, right? And so it was worth it to him to be, but the transitions between the content is what makes it flow smoothly.
Yeah, just for everyone Dave listening. So what Dave mentioned is there are two transitions, and he just talked about one, which the transition at the front. So I just want to make sure that everyone can understand, because we are both very we have studied this and we are both passionate about this, but hope to express this passion and expertise to everyone else watching. Hopefully they share our passion. You did one transition already. The first transition was there's like amazing beginning. Amazing beginning was that beautiful sentence. Well, that I don't even do that. I think it's just in the next. There's something like hypnotic about that. In the we can talk about future pacing, they go whatever it is. People are like, okay, cool, 75 minutes. I'm going to learn about this, and then so that I don't. Wow, it's a great hope. There's a promise inside, etc. Then the next thing you do right after that, and then it's you qualify them. Then afterwards, you bounce in between the pain and promise. And now they're like, all right, cool. I don't know who this Dave Dee guy is, but I sure like what I'm hearing at the start. And then you transition into your content via the origin story. So that's the first transition. So now you transition by origin. Then that's where you introduce the concepts. That's where you start to pseudo teach, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, I like this. But you can't just, and I've seen this, and that's why I want to talk passionately and tell people why they should listen to this. Because then you have seen people like, they do such a great thing and then they take a very hard right turn. All right, guys, so
the close.
I have something to sell you. They feel like, whoa, that was the weird, like just a 90-degree turn.
Yeah,
throws you off.
100%. So let's and again, if you want me to, I'm happy to give you my transition to the close.
Love it.
Yeah.
But have you seen it go like really
Oh
bad?
my God. Almost every, no, well, I shouldn't say almost everybody, but a lot of people, their whole energy changes. Right?
Yes.
Their whole voice changes, their body changes, their movement changes. It's almost as if a siren is going off. Hey, it's time for me to sell you something. It's time for me to sell you something. Just a really quick story about a siren going off during a close. So when I was working for GKIC, I did all of their boot camps, which were the 2 or 3 day training programs designed to indoctrinate people and sell them stuff, right? And so we had a disgruntled meeting planner who was leaving, who got fired or something like that, knew she was going to get fired. And as her parting gift, she booked an event, one of these boot camps in Chicago in the middle of the summer. It's just really hot in the middle of the summer, everybody. And I went to the hotel and we're walking through and we're walking and we're walking and we're walking. And where the heck's the meeting room, right? We walk outside. We walk into the parking lot. She had booked it in a wedding tent, a tent that they hold weddings in the middle of the parking lot.
Oh, wow.
All right. No, wait, it gets worse.
In summer.
This is in the summer. This is 100% true story. So first of all, if you've ever been in a wedding tent, they're not super bright, right? We're in the middle of the parking lot by the highway. They have some air conditioners, but Chicago is really hot during the summer. We're in the parking lot. That day that the event starts, they start retarring, repaving the parking lot. So you had that smell coming in.
Oh, geez. Oh,
it's
wow.
hot, right? So people they're sweating. It's kind of darkish. It's hot. And so now I'm going into a close, selling the big thing that we're going to sell, right? I'm doing my presentation, trying to keep people awake and fired up. No one's really happy. And dude, I am transitioning into the close. And I kid you not, I'm transitioning into we were talking about fire trucks and police cars start bolting down the highway, which we're next to. So there were literal sirens going off right when I was going into the close. So, oh my God, I still closed, by the way, not as well as I normally did. But anyway, so the transition to the close, let me give you little pieces of it. All right. Because this is where almost everyone messes it up. You just said a big thing. You don't want to change your energy. You don't want to change your voice. You don't want to, right? You want it to be smooth. So here is one strategy for doing that. You just done your last piece of content. So you say, so far you've discovered, and then you recap what you've talked about, the major points. Now, by the way, those keywords are really important. They seem like not important, but they're really important because you don't want to say, so in conclusion, right? Because that indicates that's the end of the presentation. And for our purposes, we're just getting started, right? We haven't got to our close yet. So you don't want to say anything, or you don't want to say to recap. So far, you've discovered, because so far indicates that there's more to come.
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
All these
So
words are
far,
so important.
yep. So far, you discovered this, this, and this, right? Now, then you say, but I want you to understand this one thing. And then you hit them with a positive statement of the thing that they want. So we'll just keep on the tax thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So far you've discovered this, this, and this, but I want you to understand this one thing. There is a way for you to keep more of your hard-earned money in your pocket and do it legally so the government keeps their greedy, dirty little hands off of it. It's legal, it's easy, and yes, you can do it. So you're making the statement of the thing that they must believe in order. You're emphasizing at this point they should believe it, but you're just emphasizing it. Yes, I want you to understand this one thing. Yes, you can increase your sales by 330% in the next 90 days without spending another penny on marketing. Whatever the thing is, because if they don't buy the premise, then nothing else matters. Okay. Now, the next piece of it is, now you might be wondering, how do I do that? And that now you can go into your close. So what you've just done there is they are wondering, how do I actually do that? So you might be wondering, how do I do that? Well, there's two ways that you can do it. One, you can take the information I give you here and try to do it yourself. This is a legitimate way to do it. This is called the trial and error method. But as you know, it's a slow, painful, and quite frankly, more expensive method because you're going to be spending money trying to figure it out. You're going to be spending time trying to figure it out. Now, since you are here, my guess is that you want to see these results as quickly as possible in your bank account. And the fastest way to do that is to not reinvent the wheel. The fastest way is to use a proven program and get a mentor who can help you. And so I want to introduce you to, and then you introduce whatever your product is.
Yes.
Now you're smoothly into it. And just for the heck of it, Melvin, let's give them one more piece, because now they want to hear what the solution is, right? At this point, they should really want your product, right? They don't know what it is yet, but they should want it. So now they're on the edge of their seats. Now they're excited to hear about it, but you don't tell them. Instead, you say to them, but before I give you the details about this program, let me tell you who this is not for. So this is not for you. And this is true qualification. So again, I work with a lot of people they're using their presentation in order to get somebody to schedule an appointment, a strategy session with them, right? And so this is real qualification. So if I'm working with someone who's a financial advisor, someone who helps people with their finances, and I only want people that have $500,000 in investable assets, I want to say at this point, hey, this is not for you if you don't have at least $500,000 in investable assets, because the strategies that we're going to go over during our strategy session really only apply to someone with that level of assets. This is not for you. So this is a true qualification of who you want to buy and who should not buy, right? Hey, this isn't for you if you are not if you're someone, here's a good one to use. This is not for you is if you're someone who does not follow through, because I can tell you that this program will work for you, but you got to implement the program. Now, the beauty of that is when you say something like that, no one wants to put themselves in the category of not someone who, even if they are someone that doesn't follow through, they don't want to put themselves in that category. Yeah. And so the major point here is, hey, you introduce the program with that transition, then you say who this is not for, and then you go into the close.
I think it is so beautiful because the way you set it up is so far you have discovered but then you remind them of the premise, right? Yes. So you set up, so that is critical, right? It is absolutely possible to do this, or whatever it is, right? Just the summary has to remind them of the meta promise, the bigger picture promise, so that. And then afterwards, then you set up the beautiful transition, and it's all down to those two things. You know, it is possible, but there are only two ways: do it yourself, trial and error, probably more error than trial, or if you want the fastest and you speed, and then this is the way you can do it, and that's why I've decided to. And then and the tonality is really critical. Tonality, body language, ease. Because otherwise, like if there's no transition, or if there's a transition but Then immediately you mentioned just now, they start changing dramatically. They went from charismatic to now like, stone face killer. It was like, oh,
Right.
what happened to this guy? God damn.
All stiff and
Yeah.
nervous. And yeah. And then the whole thing that we talked about at the very top, the very beginning of this, which is the entire presentation is if you think of it, the entire presentation is the close, right?
Yeah.
What we've discussed here is really a complete system.
It is a
And
system.
what most people do, and by the way, to close another loop, the reason I bombed so badly that very first time I spoke on Dan Kennedy's stage was because I made the classic mistake that most people make, which is to do a presentation, to teach, and then to tack on an offer at the end, as opposed to making the entire presentation naturally lead to the offer. That's what almost everybody does. They create the teaching pieces and all of that, and then they tack on a sale at the end.
So you actually went up there and taught like 100%. So they had no pain, no need, no desire at the end. And you're like, hey man, by the way, do you all want to buy this thing? And they're like, nah, we good. we good, homie. We good. We don't really.
We're good. We're gonna buy the next guy's who knows what the hell he's doing up there. Right?
Yeah. Let's talk about two more things. I'm sure. More than down to have another podcast with you on delivery and just like planning out content. Because this time around we got one of our passionate which is mechanics design, and a lot, and people need to know that this is a real art and science. It's kind of like the music or like the story. There is a story.
I love that.
Yeah, because you just can't just like toss out, just like just go up there and wing it, and then I'm going to predict you're going to bomb. Like it's not gonna. It's not like I just like cross my fingers and see what happens. I know what will happen. It will suck. That's all what happens. Let's talk about how you push them over the edge at the end. So you transition. So only people who have done it before, and I hope that people who watch this have actually either done it before, or maybe a bomb before, like you mentioned you had before, or like, just people who love the craft. This is a craft at the end. So after you introduce the offer, there are a whole bunch of bonuses and things. What are the ways that you push them over the edge to the degree of running? Oh my God, let's talk about that, man. There is a way, because the desire increases, but for them to run, there is an art. So let's talk about the run.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me tell you what I don't do. And there's nothing wrong with this. I just don't do it. Okay. And there's a lot of people that do it, which is constantly go back to the slide. So you add something so you've got this thing and you add a bonus and you go back to the slide and you add it to that slide. Then you do another bonus and you go back to the slide and you add it to that slide. You do another. I don't do that. To me, it comes across as really, really salesy. So I don't do that. But so first of all, I would say that the biggest key to making them run to the back of the room is everything that you did before it, right? So that they really have this burning desire to buy whatever it is you're selling before you even tell them what it is that you're selling. And you mentioned my Facebook. I just had one of my clients. I wrote a post about one-to-many selling, about platform selling. And he said he commented, he said, one of the most amazing things I've ever seen was people running to the back of the room to buy what you were selling before you even told them what the price was. Right?
Wait, before you tell them price, do you tell them like bonuses and this kind of thing? Because I love the way you do it, because it is possible to get people to. I've seen people get people to run the back of the room, but it's always like exceptionally hard closing and very scarcity minded. But if you get them to run the back and you like cool and you chill. And like you do that even with that, that's some skill, right? Not like, sit down, you're losers, you must go.
Well, it's really cool. Now with that technique, it really all depends upon. I'll give you the technique, but it really the technique is not really technique. Is to have nailed everything so powerfully inside the presentation before you get to the what the price is and everything like that they just like I got to get this. But the actual technique is to say, okay. So before I even get to the price or anything, I gotta say, if you already know that you want this, get out of your seat and go to the back of the room. Trust me, you'll be glad that you did. Right. So the first person that gets up, I will say to them, I will point them out and I'll say, are you going to the back of the room to invest in the product?
Wow, that's brilliant.
And they'll say, yes. And I'll say, you don't even know what the price is. And they'll say, yep, no. And I'm going to say, well, because you took fast action. Okay. I'm going to give you a private 30-minute consultation. Now, not everyone gets that, but here's the key. Now, other people start getting up. This is before the price. And I keep doing the close, and we'll get into the close, but I keep doing the close. When the person comes back, I say to them, I see the person coming back. I say, was it better than I said it was going to be? And they always say, yes, it was way better than I said it was. Because so there's a lot of stuff that goes on with this, right? So I have set a fictional price, a price that they think it's going to be, that everyone in the audience thinks it's going to be. And when they go to the back, it's actually less than they think it's going to be. Plus, there's a fast action bonus, which is that I have not even talked about yet. And so the answer has to be yes, because number one, it's less than they thought it was going to be. And number two, they're getting something that they weren't even aware that they were getting. And that something is really good. And the person will always go, oh, yeah, it's way better. And that causes more people to go to the back. All right. All right. And
curiosity and anticipation. You just mentioned that, right? The curiosity. What is this? I need to know.
That's right. And so the way that I get the rush to the back room is exactly like I said. I do stack the bonuses, not all of the time. Depends upon what I'm selling. Okay. But let's say we're selling a traditional 1997, $2,000, $2,500 product. I'll stack the bonuses, right? And here's the key. You stack the bonuses, and there's a whole art to creating, good bonuses. And typically it's not more courses, right? That's a mistake. But anyway, that's a whole other topic. And then I will act as if you have to convince the audience that that's it, right? That, wow, this is the most amazing offer I've ever heard in my life. He is done. That's it, right? And that's going to create a rush. People should already be going to the back of the room now because they think that that's it. Then after they think it's done, you add in one more kick-ass fast action bonus. Now, the fast action could be number of people, right? Hey, we've got 50 of these, depending on the size of the audience. We got 50 of these. You're going to walk away with it right now. It could be time. I'm putting up a clock. If you have not enrolled in the program before this clock hits 0, there's a number of different ways to do it. But you add in that extra fast action bonus, which just causes people to go ballistic. And that last fast action bonus is really, really strong. And so all of those things combined is what creates that rush
to frenzy.
To the back of the room.
Yeah.
But you can't do it mechanically. You've got to really get the audience to believe that that's it. So the example and the idea for that strategy came from seeing good performers in concert, like going to a rock concert, right? So one of the masters of this is Bruce Springsteen.
Oh,
okay. So Springsteen, first of all, his concerts are massively long, not as long as they used to because he's older, but still 2 hours, 45 minutes, 3 hours. And he will do, you think that he is done, and he acts as if he is done. And he does it every show. And you think they are wiped out. This band has just given their all, and the crowd's going crazy. And then he'll do like, okay, I'll do something else. And he just keeps stacking it until you're like, oh my God, this was the greatest show I've ever seen. I've never seen it. And it's planned, right? I mean, it's because he does it every show, but it's brilliant. It's brilliant because you think it's done. And it's not like the fake encore. We've all seen the fake encore. Okay, we know that he's coming back out, right? Because it's planned. He does it so you really think that the show's over, and he keeps going. And so that's the idea of stacking that like they think you're done, and then you boom hit them with one other thing that just drives them insane because they gotta go.
Yeah. I can visualize it because it's just one layer after layer, but the one that really gets them is the idea where they have to leave. Because I think that's curiosity. So it's so beautiful. If you already know you want this, like go there. Right. It begins the avalanche. It begins.
Yeah, it begins it. Right. And by the way, you may only get 1 or 2 people, right? But all you need is one.
Yeah.
Right. Because that one person comes back. Is it way better than I said it was? Is it better than I said it was? Yes. Is it way better? By the way, that's the language. Is it better than I thought it was? Because I want to get multiple yeses, right? So is it better than I said it was going to be? Yes. Is it way better than I said it was going to be? Oh, yes. The person will say. Boom, boom.
Then more and more people are going to go, and that starts the social proof and
Right,
element. This is absolutely beautiful. I think this is amazing. I want to ask one final question. We'll see. There's so many other things we can talk about. We always have a good time when we chat. And we really need, like, because there's so many other elements. Delivery is one, and then also offer. So because, like, people don't understand that Dave, it's more than just like a stage closer. There people who do stage closers, but there's so many elements, right? There's passion, delivery. You actually need to, like, know your content, and then also you need to put together an offer, which is really critical, because if you go up there, we haven't talked about that at all. But you need to really have an offer that people actually fundamentally want and need. And that was one of the things that you did together with Dan, and etc. etc. So we should shelve those questions for another time. Let's talk about automated webinars and what you have seen the difference between a live one versus a webinar that's done on Zoom. And webinars, you have a few kinds. You have a webinar where you can see the people's faces. Then you have the webinar where you're kind of like, you don't see anybody. It almost feels like you're talking to a black hole. Like, you're just like it really makes a difference when you can see the people's faces. Because then you can see whether they're laughing, they're engaged, etc. Then and then afterwards. So that's one. So what's the difference between live and webinar, face versus no face? And the next one is that you did 1.5 mil with Dan, automated webinar. And that's when it's like, really, like, there is maybe somebody there, nobody there, but you're talking in the camera, and this thing can evergreen. And that's the stunning thing as well.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. There's a lot to unpack there. So, obviously, if I can see the audience, well, first of all, let's just rank it, right? If I'm live in front of an audience, I'm probably going to close better than on a webinar. It's just a different dynamic, right? If I'm standing in front of a group of people and I'm with them, that's different. Next is, yes, I can see them, right? I like that. Then there's a traditional webinar, and I do a lot of the traditional ones where I don't see them; they can only see me, right? But they're live. In almost every scenario, live you'll produce better numbers, better conversions than automated.
Yeah.
In almost every scenario. Why? Because, well, even if you can't see them, I can still, like, literally interact with them, like really interact with them, answer their actual questions. If you are going to do automated, and I've got clients and I do them, if you're going to do automated, I'm going to give you a counterintuitive strategy. But I can tell you that it's working. It works for me and it works for my clients. I don't do evergreen, where someone is selecting, like, oh, it starts in the next 15 minutes, and then I can choose a time, or I can choose another time, or I can choose another time. Maybe you've made these work and you can teach me. I've never made those work consistently.
Yeah.
With a high enough convert. I haven't. What I can tell you I know works, and it kills. And this is how we did it at GKIC. And this is how my clients do it. Is, yes, you do a recorded webinar, an evergreen webinar, but you promote it on a certain day at a certain time as if it were live. So I've got, okay.
Yeah.
So I've got one financial advisor who I work with. She's a superstar. Her entire business of generating clients is done with webinars. That's the only thing she does. So she used to go do dinner seminars. So here in the States, the financial advisor will go and do a dinner seminar. So they'll go to a restaurant, they'll serve dinner, and then they'll do their presentation after. She was getting burnt out about that.
Yeah.
A lot of people would go just for the free dinner, and she wanted to eliminate that. And then COVID happened, and so she had to. And so she hired me, started working with me, and she created 4 webinars on 4 different. So every week she does a webinar on one particular topic. Now, all of them now are recorded. She originally did them live. Okay. And so she promotes them via Facebook as if they were live. So the webinar is Thursday at 6 p.m., just as if she was doing it live, right? But she's not. And so she has the chat and everything that's going. And that is, her conversions are great. Her conversions, she said, are actually better than when she was doing it live.
Yeah.
Okay. And it really gives the illusion of live, but more importantly, it gives people a chance to block it off on their calendar.
Yes.
So the webinar that I went to the other day, that I said I was on it for 2 minutes, I signed up. It started, shockingly, it started in 10 minutes, right? I didn't have it on my calendar, so I signed up for it. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to watch this. Yeah, I'm going to watch this, right? Then literally in 10 minutes, I forgot all about it.
Wow.
Because I got moving on to something else.
Yeah.
I went to my email to check my email. I'm like, oh shit, right? So I want to go watch this. And I started watching, but I'm like, I didn't have 90 minutes blocked off on my calendar to do this. And so I just did it.
I see.
Right. And so that strategy is super powerful, everybody. And we can give one final tip on this if you are going to do automated.
Yeah.
So first of all, again, it's everyone's own personal decision. Out of integrity, I never say that it's live, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not true.
I know people that say it's like
Yeah, well, the problem with that is, first of all, I don't think that's a great way to start a client relationship is by lying to them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's not good.
Also, if something technologically goes wrong, which it can, that's not a good scenario either. Now, with that being said, we don't say that it's not live. Okay. So she has a real chat that is running, which was from a previous live webinar that she did. So she did them live in the beginning, right?
Yeah.
To get it good. And then she took the chat and using technology, she's got the chat that's running. This is a great way to tie all this together. Remember we talked about objections?
Yeah.
So, okay. So here is how you answer questions on a evergreen webinar. This tip I'm about to give you is
I can sense it. Yeah.
All right. So we know that people are going to have these questions.
Yeah.
So never ever say if you're going to do it live and recording it, never say, just make this a big thumb rule. Never say, John Smith asks. Don't say that. What you want to do is you want to say, a question just came in about whatever questions that you know you're going to get. A question just came in about this, and then you answer it. Well, the person who is watching the pre-recorded webinar that typed that question or a version of that question into the chat believes you are answering them.
Wow. That is
right. And so you never read the question exactly. So, a question just came in asking about this. So the person that typed in a question that was like who's watching it live that typed in the question, which is related to that, believes you're answering them, as does everybody else.
So it's probably an NLP term, ambiguity. The end of it means they are
well, again, it's also a mind read, a psychic type of thing. Yeah.
This is brilliant. This is absolutely brilliant. There are many things. Just I've seen people do with automated webinars and chats, and so definitely master at doing this. Because just like just they insert questions inside the chat that then are actually run by the people behind the scenes, but they either use it as objection diffusers or,
absolutely.
Just like, clarifying questions that inflame desire. So just you mentioning the user chat is that is absolutely brilliant and very, very clever. This has been a fascinating conversation. I think it's been great. We must do a blast. Yeah. We must do a part 2 to this. Once again, for everyone listening, I hope you have shared both Dave's expertise and also our passion for this topic. I think that's the one thing as well. I think a lot of people this is not a skill that is natural. Like natural, I think like, you might have that, but the art of standing on stage in 75 tight minutes where not a minute or sentence or story can be wasted and you have to drive towards an outcome. This is a skill. This is not a natural, like I'll just go up there and see what happens because I know what will happen. It will be horrible. Yeah. So I hope.
I do too.
So I hope that we have inspired, educated people to be passionate about this craft, be knowledgeable about this craft. I think that Dave is doing something insane by putting his $997 course transcript and now turned into a book on his website for free. So if you're not going there to get a hold of the book, then you're an idiot. So please go there and do it now. And I just think Dave has a lot of expertise, and I just love talking to you about this. Just I don't have anything else, man. I just think
man. Well, thanks for having me. Let's definitely do a part 2 here where we can talk in depth about the presentation skills, right? How to present like a pro,
and the offer also, because like
how to create. Well, we could do one on how to create an offer and the whole thing.
Yeah, because the offer, because you mentioned something just now, because Dave mentioned it and knew that there was an open loop for future conversation. Because you need to know how to distinguish between a call offer and those fast action ones that get really people like, oh my God. And those are, there's a skill and an art to it. But if you guys love and enjoy this, number one, download Dave's book. Number two, Dave, do they follow you on Facebook? Largely, Facebook's that's the place to get in touch with.
Yep. Facebook. Yep. They can follow me on Facebook. The best thing though is to go to davedee.com, because then they're going to get the book, and then they're going to be invited to, also I do, and it's only for the folks that are my subscribers. I do a monthly free training, and they'll be invited to that as well. And so they'll get the book, they'll get monthly free training. They can follow me on Facebook, all that kind of good stuff too.
Yeah. So I really definitely recommend that people go and do that. Dave, it has been a blast. I really appreciate your time. I really appreciate your friendship and just your expertise, your stories. And I love it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.